Hi everyone, this lecture will formalize all the inputs you have shared about your assignment from our last meeting. The study of consumer behavior always begins by understanding that it is specifically about the consumer market. And when we say consumer market, we are referring to all the people and the households that buy goods and services for personal use or consumption. And so, when we say consumer buyer behavior, we are talking about the buying behavior of final consumers. As consumers ourselves, we know that we make many buying decisions every day. And for businesses, the buying decisions should be very well understood so that we, the entrepreneurs, would know how to connect and convince our target customers to buy our products or avail of our services. Most big businesses research consumer buying decisions to answer questions about what consumers buy, where they buy, how and how much they buy, when they buy, and why they buy. And all these information are pretty much accessible and observable, except for the why. Learning about the whys of consumer buying behavior is really not so easy. The answers are often locked deep within the consumer's mind. In trying to understand consumer behavior, the million-dollar question is, how do consumers respond or react to the different marketing strategies that businesses might use? The starting point is the stimulus response model of buyer behavior shown in this diagram. As you can see, the figure shows that marketing and other stimuli enter the consumer's black box and produce certain responses. Businesses must figure out what is in the buyer's black box. Now, when we say marketing stimuli, these consist of the 4 P's: the product, the price, the place, and promotion. Other stimuli include major forces and events in the buyer's environment, like economic, technological, political, and cultural forces. All these inputs enter the buyer's black box, where they are turned into a set of buyer responses, which could include the buyer's brand and company relationship behavior, and what he or she buys, when, where, and how often. Businesses aim to understand how the stimuli are changed into responses inside the consumer's black box, which is 2 parts. First, the buyer's characteristics influence how he or she perceives and reacts to the stimuli. And second, the buyer's decision process itself affects his or her behavior. Consumer purchases are influenced strongly by cultural, social, personal, and psychological characteristics. For the most part, businesses and entrepreneurs cannot control these factors, but they must take them into account. Now, let's talk about each of these categories. First is cultural factors. Under cultural factors are culture, subculture, and social class. Culture is a set of basic values, perceptions, wants, and behaviors learned by a member of society from family and other important institutions. It is the most basic cause of a person's wants and behavior. Social scientists have contended that human behavior is largely learned. A child in the Philippines, for example, normally learns or is exposed to the following values, like respect for elders, hard work, the value of family, among many others. Every group or society has a culture, and cultural influences in buying behavior may vary greatly from country to country. And a failure to adjust to these differences can result in ineffective marketing or, embarrassing mistakes. The next one is subculture. Each culture contains smaller subcultures, or groups of people with shared value systems based on common life experiences and situations. Subcultures include nationalities, religions, racial groups, and geographic regions. Many subcultures make up important market segments, and businesses often design products and marketing programs tailored to their needs. One example of these are halal products and services for those who follow Islam. And certain regions in the Philippines may love spicy food more than other regions. The next one is social class. Social classes are society's relatively permanent and ordered divisions whose members share similar values, interests, and behaviors. Take note that social class is not determined by a single factor such as income, but rather is measured as a combination of occupation, income, education, wealth, and other variables. In some social systems, members of different classes are raised to adulthood for certain roles, and sadly, they cannot change their social positions like India's caste system. In the Philippines, however, the lines between social classes are not fixed and rigid. People can move to a higher social class, like the social climbers. Just kidding. Or drop into a lower one. Businesses are keen on the social classes target customers belong because people within a given social class tend to exhibit similar buying behavior. Social classes show distinct product and brand preferences in areas such as clothing, home furnishings, leisure activities, and cars, and maybe cell phones too. Those in the higher social class, for example, would not likely buy low-priced products, services, and brands. The next group of factors are the social factors. Under the social factors are groups and social networks. Groups are two or more people who interact to accomplish individual or mutual goals. Many small groups influence a person's behavior. Groups that have a direct influence and to which a person belongs are called membership groups. But there's also such a thing as reference groups. Reference groups serve as direct or indirect points of comparison or reference informing a person's attitudes or behavior. People are often influenced by reference groups to which they do not belong. They do not belong, but they aspire to belong. For example, an aspirational group is one to which the individual wishes to belong. That is why we try to look like BTS or Blackpink. Alright? So, businesses and entrepreneurs who are aware of this try to identify the reference groups of their target markets. Reference groups expose a person to new behaviors and lifestyles. They influence the person's attitudes and self-concept. And they create pressures to conform that may affect the person's product and brand choices. The importance of group influence varies across products and brands. It tends to be strongest when the product is visible to others whom the buyer respects. The next social factor is the family. Family members can strongly influence buyer behavior. Social scientists claim that the family is the most important consumer buying organization in society. And it has been researched extensively. Businesses, for instance, are interested in the roles and influences of the husband, wife, and the children on the purchase of different products and services. Studies have found that husband-wife involvement varies widely by product category and by stage in the buying process. Buying roles change with evolving consumer lifestyles. In the United States, for example, and I think you also notice it can also be observed in the Philippines, the wife traditionally has been the main purchasing agent for the family in terms of food, household products, and clothing. When a family decides where to dine out, the young children in the family has relatively strong influence in the decision to go to Jollibee. The next factors are roles and status. We all belong to many groups. We have family, we have clubs, organizations, online communities. Now, when we belong to these many groups, our position in each group can be defined in terms of both role and status. A role consists of the activities people are expected to perform according to the people around them. Each role carries a status, reflecting the general esteem given to it by society. If you are the president, you are the secretary, you are the boss, you are the father, you are the eldest child, you know. Now, people usually choose products appropriate to their roles and status. Consider the various roles a working mother plays in our company. She plays the role of a brand manager. In her family, she plays the role of wife and mother. At her favorite sporting event, she plays the role of avid fan. Now, as a brand manager, she will buy the kind of clothing that reflects her role and status in her office, like corporate attire, dark suits, leather shoes. See? Now, personal factors are another group of factors that influence consumer buying behavior. Under this group of factors is age and life cycle stage. People change the goods and services they buy over their lifetimes. Tastes in food, clothes, furniture, and recreation are often age-related. That's why I don't wear skimpy skirts anymore because I think I'm too old for that. Buying is also shaped by the stage of the family life cycle. Or when we say family life cycle, these are the stages through which families might pass as they mature over time. Life stage changes usually result from demographics and life-changing events like marriage, having children, purchasing a home, children going to college, changes in personal income, moving out of the house, and retirement. So, say small cars maybe for young professionals, then they transition to bigger cars when they get married and have children. A person's occupation also affects the goods and services bought by consumers. For example, blue-collar workers tend to buy more ragged work clothes, whereas executives buy more business suits. Businesses try to identify the occupational groups that have an above-average interest in their products and services. A company or a business can even specialize in making products needed by a given occupational group. Like, for example, if you're from Iligan, we have a shop here called Tongas who specialize in military uniforms. Another personal factor is economic situation. A person's economic situation will affect his or her store and product choices. So businesses watch trends in personal income, savings, and interest rates. Another factor is lifestyle. People coming from the same subculture, social class, and occupation may have quite different lifestyles. When we say lifestyle, we are referring to a person's pattern of living as expressed in his or her psychographics. It involves measuring consumers' major AIO dimensions. A for activities, which could include work, hobbies, shopping, sports, special events. And then the I stands for interests in food, fashion, family, recreation, And then we have O for opinions about themselves, social issues, business, products. Yeah. So lifestyle captures something more than the person's social class or personality. It profiles a person's whole pattern of acting and interacting in the world. And then we have personality and self-concept. Each person's unique personality shapes his or her buying behavior. When we say personality, this refers to the distinct psychological characteristics that distinguish a person or group from other people or groups. It is usually described in terms of traits such as self-confidence, dominance, sociability, autonomy, defensiveness. It could also include adaptability and aggressiveness. A number of studies have supported the proposition that personality can be useful in analyzing consumer behavior for certain product or brand choices. The idea here is that brands also have personalities, and consumers are likely to choose brands with personalities that aligns with their own personality. Some would call it personality brand fit. For example, some known brands are strongly associated with one particular trait, like Apple with excitement, CNN with competence, and Dove with sincerity. So these brands will attract persons who are high on the same personality traits. Some businesses use a concept related to personality, and this is what is known as a person's self-concept. Others would call it self-image. Now, the idea is that people's possessions contribute to and reflect their identities. It is like saying, we are what we have. So, to understand consumer behavior, businesses must first understand the relationship between consumer self-concept and possessions. It's like looking at a personal trash bin, and by the contents of the trash bin, you can somewhat tell what the person is like. The last group of factors is the psychological factors. The first one under this group is motivation. We all have many needs at any given time, right? You are familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Some needs are biological or basic, like because we are hungry, thirsty, we are cold and uncomfortable. Other needs are psychological, like the need for recognition, esteem, or belonging. A need becomes a motive when it is triggered to a sufficient level of intensity. A motive is a need that is sufficiently pressing to direct the person to seek satisfaction. Now, this and other motivation theories can help us better understand what will compel our target customers to buy our products or avail of our services. The next one is perception. A motivated person is ready to act, yes? But how the person acts is influenced by his or her own perception of the situation. Now, what does this mean? All of us learn by the flow of information through our five senses, right? Sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. However, each of us receives, organizes, and interprets these sensory information in different ways. This receiving, organizing, and interpreting sensory information is what we call perception. Perception is the process by which people select, organize, and interpret information to form a meaningful picture of the world. Interestingly, people can form different perceptions of the same stimulus. And this is because of three perceptual processes: selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention. People are exposed to a great amount of stimuli every day, and we cannot possibly notice and remember all of them. Plus, we sometimes have the tendency to perceive things in a way that is aligned with what and how we want things to be. Now, that is selective distortion. Another factor is learning. When people act, they learn. We have said this earlier. Now, when someone demonstrates changes in behavior based on his or her experience, we say learning has occurred. Learning theorists say that most human behavior is learned and that it happens through the interplay of drives, stimuli, cues, responses, and reinforcement. For example, when you buy a Samsung TV, if your experience when using the TV is satisfying and rewarding, you will most likely watch TV very often. And every time you do, your behavior is reinforced by the enjoyable and satisfying experience. The sound is so crisp and clear, the color is so sharp and bright, etc., etc. Then, the next time you buy a TV or other appliance or a gadget, the probability is greater that you will buy a Samsung product. Finally, we have beliefs and attitudes. Through doing and learning, people acquire beliefs and attitudes. These, in turn, influence their buying behavior. A belief is a descriptive thought that a person has about something. These beliefs may be based on real knowledge or it could just be opinion. And it may or may not carry an emotional charge. Businesses are interested in the beliefs that people have about specific products and services. This is because these beliefs make up product and brand images. And these product and brand images affect buying behavior. If some of the beliefs are wrong, it will prevent people from buying a certain product. Now, in this case, the entrepreneurs or the business will benefit from launching a campaign to correct the wrong beliefs. Meanwhile, people have attitudes regarding, say, religion, politics, clothes, music, food, and almost everything else. Attitudes describes a person's relatively consistent evaluations, feelings, and tendencies towards an object or idea. It puts people into a frame of mind of liking or disliking something, of moving toward or away from them. A camera buyer may hold attitudes, for example, such as, buy the best, or the Japanese make the best electronic products in the world. And, creativity and self-expression are among the most important things in life. If this is the case, the Nikon camera would fit well into the consumer's existing attitudes, as this is what the brand is portraying. But attitudes are difficult to change. A person's attitudes fit into a pattern, and changing one attitude may require difficult adjustments in many others. That is why what businesses usually do is to try to fit its products into existing attitudes rather than attempt to change attitudes. So, now that you know the many different factors that shape consumer buying behavior, there are actually many opportunities for research on it in relation to certain product categories. We also realize that the business of selling products and services could be a complicated matter, but an extremely interesting one. Well, that's all for now. Until our next lesson on consumer behavior.